Hi, my name's Ella, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today's video is going to be a quick, brief run through on having eye surgery. So in particular, the type of surgery that I will be talking about is strabismus, also known as squint surgery. So my last video was actually me saying that I was going to be having this surgery done, and I did, and I'm actually having another one tomorrow. So what is the aim of this surgery? So personally for me, my last one was to correct an inward drift. So my right eye turns inwards. For those of you who don't know or haven't watched any of my other videos, I am blind in my right eye. I was born blind in my right eye with something called microphthalmia and PHPV, and I have had 3, tomorrow will be my 4th, surgeries on my eye to correct a different intern or upturn in my eye. So what my personal surgeries have done is correct an inward drift and an upward drift. So my first surgery that I had was when I was 5, and I had a extremely severe inward turn where you wouldn't be able to see all of the colour and the pupil of my eye because it turned all the way in. I had that done when I was 5. It was mainly so my prosthetic shell fit my eye properly. I then had a second one when I was 19. My first one was done at Great Ormond Street. My second, third and now 4th will be done at Addenbrook in Cambridge, all by the same surgeon. And the second one took the muscle that runs along the top of my eye, took it down and sewed it to the bottom of my eye, creating an anchor. Now the aim of that was to stop my eye drifting upwards, so it would have the muscle physically pulling it down, not allowing it to go up. My second recent one, so my 3rd one in total, was to striate the left side muscle and shorten the right side muscle. And that was on an adjustable stitch, so if when I woke up they looked at my eye and was like, no, we need to do a bit more, or oh my gosh, we need to loosen it a bit, they could put me back under and do that. But thankfully when I came back round, everything was fine and how it should be. And now hopefully my 4th and final one, which is tomorrow, will be to move the muscle that runs along the top of my eye and move it so it's in between where it was and the right side muscle, so it will pull essentially, rather than it being there and moving inwards, it will be along the side and pulling outwards. Now, as I said, the first one that I had was so my prosthetic shell fit properly. Obviously I don't wear my prosthetic shell anymore. I haven't worn it continuously since I was probably about 13. Probably like 12 or 13, and I haven't worn it at all since I was about 17. This is a personal choice of mine, and it's something that not everyone is able to do. The idea of the prosthetic shell is to encourage the growth of the facial muscles, the facial bones, and so that the tissue all grows at the same size, whereas normally without it, it wouldn't. I myself am very lucky that the difference in my eyes size-wise isn't too great. So as you can see, my eyebrows are not at the same level, and that's because the right side of my face is slightly lower down because it hasn't been irritated by the eyes at the same rate as the other side, which is why people wear a prosthetic shell. The 2nd, 3rd and 4th surgeries were done purely for personal choices. They were all elective surgeries, and some may even suggest that they were cosmetic surgeries. I didn't choose to do these surgeries to enhance myself in any way. I didn't do it to make myself appear more attractive. I have done them because I was finding that as I was getting older and as I was getting into more professional situations, like applying for jobs, working in public facing environments, going through university, things like that, I was being treated by adults, people who should know better, people who do know better. I was either being treated almost in a childlike way, or that they were seeing my eye rather than my achievements and my potential. I did not like looking at myself in photos because it was the first thing that I saw and it was the first thing that other people saw. So I have chosen to have these surgeries to make myself more equal, as in make my appearance more equal, and make myself more equal to people who are at the same level as me, have the same experience as me, but look normal, which unfortunately is the only term for it. So how did the entire process begin? So when I decided that I wanted my second surgery, I went and told my GP I would like to be referred to an ophthalmologist, and at the time I was living in Cambridge for university, and they referred me to Addenbrook's, and we went from there. I saw a team of people who would do checks on the health of my eye, who would do measurements of the interns, who would do pressure checks, sight tests on both of my eyes because I have some light perception. I then went and met with my surgeon, who is very understanding, the most compassionate medical professional I have ever met. She is a lovely lady. She is very, very intelligent, very well versed on all the kinds of different approaches that she would have to take on the different shapes of eyes. So the same surgery that she would do on me, to someone who had two working eyes, one of them had an inward drift, is very different because my eye is not perfectly round, and it's not rugby shaped either. It's kind of like a deflated rugby ball. So there's curves and bends in it that other people necessarily wouldn't have. She is very explanatory, so she tells me everything. She continually keeps me in the loop on what's happening, and that is something that I very much appreciate. So I met her once and she did different tests on my eye, so that first appointment took quite a long time. She did a lot of time checking and looking at my eye. She looked at my previous medical records because obviously the anatomy of my eye had been changed from the surgery I had when I was very young. And then my second appointment, they did the measurements again, and then I got to discuss my options with her. So we knew that we could go in all guns blazing, do everything that I wanted at once, and have more risk of complications, of things necessarily not being as perfect as we would want them, or we could take it slow. We chose to do the latter, and we decided that we agreed it would take multiple surgeries and it would take multiple years to get to the desired effect that I wanted, and we went from there. So obviously, because my surgery had been done so many years ago the first time, she didn't necessarily know what was going to be in there when she got in. So she did explain to me that it might be the case that we had to go in and completely change the plan and do something else, and I 100% trusted her, and it all went off without a hitch. We had lots of appointments beforehand, so between us agreeing that we were going to do the surgery and the actual surgery date, I believe it was about 6 or 7 months, and in that time I had 2 further sets of measurements, one done within 4 weeks of the operation itself, and I also had a pre-op appointment, which basically meant that they did my height, my weight, my bloods. I had an ECG. We decided that there would be a cardiac specialist in the building, So if you have any kind of history of heart conditions, any arrhythmias appearing on an ECG, any previous experience of family issues, things like that, then they can make two decisions. One, that there'll be a cardiac specialist in the building, as it isn't done within the main Addenbrooks, it is done in the Cambridge Eye unit, which is next to Addenbrooks. And then they could also decide to have a cardiac specialist in the room. So we decided that we would have one in the building, just to make sure that everything went off okay, to make sure that there wasn't going, if there was any issues, then there was somebody that would be able to get there so quickly and everything would be okay. I had a conversation with the anaesthetic specialist, anaesthesiologist, because I have had previous experience of coming around from anaesthetic really quickly, because I've had lots of general anaesthetic when I was younger. It was something that my parents and my doctors knew, that I metabolise it really quickly, and that they would need to take that into consideration when they were working out my doses. So it then comes to the day of. I went in with both my parents, and on the day you do a kind of health check, so you make sure that you haven't drank anything in the last 3 hours, you haven't eaten anything in the last 6 hours. They get you dressed into this really lovely gown, thigh-high stockings, compression stockings, and grippy socks. Because my parents had taken me, they kept being given lots of lovely tea and cake, and they made them sit around the corner from me just not to rub it in. So once you've kind of been dressed, you've had the health check, they check to see if you've had any medication in the last 12 hours, which they will tell you if you can continue taking your medication at the pre-op appointment. So things like vitamins, supplements, things like that, you have to stop for 2 weeks. General medication, like all of my medications, I can still keep taking. Things like birth control you can still keep taking. So they let you know that all beforehand. And then you have an appointment with your surgeon. So it's normally between their last surgery and when they're prepping for yours. They go through everything, they let you know everything, they make you sign the medical waiver, they go through everything that's going to happen, they let you know the risks, and then they go and get prepared and scrubbed in and stuff like that, and then they call you through. So it's not like these dramatic big scenes where you're sat in a bed and they wheel you through. Normally it's you walk through, you sit on the bed, they're all very kind, always talking to you, always letting you know what's happening, and then they put a cannula in, which is, if you haven't ever had a cannula, it's like when you have a blood test, except rather than taking the needle out and then getting the blood and taking the cannula out, they put it in, take the needle out, leave the cannula in, take the cannula down, and then put a tube onto it, which is how they can then give you the anaesthetic to put you to sleep, and then how they keep the anaesthetic going in afterwards. And that's pretty much it. They normally make you count down from 10 and then you fall asleep, and it is literally just like being a bit tipsy, and then you fall to sleep. You don't remember anything, there is no horrible sensation. You might get a bit warm, or you might feel a bit fuzzy, like if your hands have got pins and needles, stuff like that. It's not scary, it doesn't all suddenly go black, you literally just start counting down and then you're asleep. And so they then, if a parent has come in with you, they then tell your parent to go, and then they go, and normally these type of surgeries can take about 45 minutes to an hour and a half. I know that my first surgery that I had when I was very young did take about 4 hours, whereas the ones that I've had recently, the longest the first one took, which was a larger surgery than the other ones, took 2 hours. This one is said to take about 45 minutes to an hour. and then once you're done they start to wake you up. When it's actually happening, so when you are waking up, it's almost like a sensation of you're breathing in very cold air, because obviously you've had a tube down to help you breathe. It's literally just the fact that they've taken this tube out that had gas and air, so you can kind of feel it like it's a bit cold. It's literally just being outside on a cold day. They then make sure that you're stable and that you're not being sick, or you're not kind of coming around too quickly, and that they try and keep you calm and they talk to you. You don't remember any of it. It's almost like your brain is still trying to wake up. So like when you're drowsy, when you've been asleep in a really deep sleep and you suddenly wake up, it's kind of a bit like that. So you don't really remember anything, you don't really feel anything at all, and then they wheel you back through into the main room. That's kind of like laid out like a ward, and that's where my parents were the first time, that's where my mum was the second time, and my mother is going to be coming with me again. So she will be there just in the little ward bit with the chairs, and then they'll wheel the bed through, and you are kind of left there to just slowly wake up, for the anaesthetic to come out of your system. They will give you some water to try and drink, mainly to try and get rid of the taste of the kind of chemical air that they were putting in with the tube. It's almost a bit like the taste of an inhaler, so it's not bad, it's just also that you haven't drank anything since before the surgery, so they want to kind of keep you hydrated. And then once you're awake enough, they then want to try and get you to eat something. So normally it's just like sandwiches and stuff like that. I will be taking a little fruit pouch with me, because I don't eat a lot of bread anyway, and when you're still kind of like waking up a bit, it's a bit difficult to eat a big sandwich. So if you're a picky eater, if you're allergic to anything, or have any dietary preferences, I would suggest taking something substantial to be able to eat there. They won't let you go home until they've seen you eat something, or you can tell them that you've ate something, just because obviously you've been under anaesthetic. They want to make sure that you're swallowing properly, that you're able to function enough to be able to eat something, and that you're not going to choke, or you're not going to suffocate yourself or anything like that. So obviously with my mum and my parents being there, it was just easy for them to give me small bits to eat, and I was fine. After that, once you've woken up enough, your surgeon will then come and see you to double check that everything's fine. If you're experiencing a bit of pain or a bit of nausea, then they can get you some medication for that to help you. And then yeah, you just wait for a little while. I think normally I'm there from about 2 to 3 hours after I've woken up. And then you get dressed, they take the cannula out, because they've left that in case they need to give you any medication. So my last one, I came around and I was quite nauseous because I tried to drink too quickly, and they had to give me some anti-nausea medication so I could have my food and then be able to go home. Normally, because you've had anaesthetic, it's so easy to fall asleep again, so I slept all the way home. We have to drive about 2.5 hours home. I normally sleep most of the way home. Then over the next couple of days they give you drops to put in morning and night. You can also take pain medication if it's quite irritated or if it's quite painful. I normally find that the around my eye is more painful than the eye itself, obviously because they've been pulling at it and getting in and doing the surgery that they need to do. So it's nothing that a couple of painkillers can't handle. It's not normally excruciating. If you're experiencing excruciating pain over a long period of time that painkillers and things like that aren't helping with, I strongly recommend calling your surgeon. They will give you discharge information, a sick note if you work or if you're in education, Mine is normally 3 weeks because I work with computers, so the bright lights, the focusing on stuff for a long period of time can give me headaches at the end of my recovery, so I have 3 weeks off. Obviously different surgeons, different surgeries in themselves will require different times off. So yeah, once you've had the actual surgery and you're recovered, you then will have times where you go back to do checkups, and then you go from there. So I hope you found this informative. I will be back after my surgery to give some updates, tell you how it went, things like that. If you have any questions that you would like to know, leave them below and I will talk to you another time.